Oric Consulting presents the Oracle Podcast with Anton Marshall. Hello and welcome to the Oracle Podcast. I'm Anton Marshall. Today on the line with us we've got Gabby LaRue, who is somewhat of an icon in the South African music industry, musician, producer, composer. Gabby, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Anton. Thanks for having me with you guys on the Oracle, I believe.
What's currently got you excited, Gabby? What are you working on? What's interesting in your job right now?
Well, I think the first thing is just recently we converted my 20-year-old business Kaleido Sound from a CC to a PTY Limited called Kaleido Media. And the reason why we did that is because, I realized that progressively all the components of the entertainment industry are really interconnected, and now more so than ever. So from being really largely just part of the music component of entertainment since sort of 2006 and then more so in 2008, and since then progressively I've got more involved in the other components such as video production, stills shoots, all the other components, even voiceovers, all of that sort of stuff that we certainly get involved in all the aspects. I'm producing TV commercials now as well, not only the music side of it. So that's quite exciting. I've had to reskill myself in many aspects because, you're competing internationally. The notion of just competing locally and local is lekker, that's long gone out the window. We certainly have to measure ourselves with the best in our industry worldwide. And that's quite a challenge, and that gets me excited every day, Anton.
Yeah, you're talking about reskilling, and then you talk about 20-year business. In 20 years, certainly just the technology, firstly, has really evolved quite a lot. And then, like, as you said, also, now we're competing globally. What are the biggest challenges for you facing that kind of gauntlet?
Well, I will tell you, I think the basic challenge that we grapple with every day lies in the perception within our local media. And I'm not necessarily attacking them, but I'm just stating the way that we as producers and people in this industry experience our broadcast media is that we are so much in competition with our international counterparts that it's sometimes almost difficult just to get a foot in. So, if you look at the way that industries are being supported by their media, such as Australia, New Zealand, and of course America, just to name a few, we haven't reached the point where we've got that sort of a media will where we kind of stand together to make our own industry cake bigger and more skilled and equipped to compete internationally. So we are always sort of in Afrikaans sê ons suig maar nog altyd aan die agtertiet. And unfortunately that is something that we still grapple with every day. Having said that, in the instances where we are competing, we're doing very, very well. And I can only compliment local creative people for that, having grasped the challenge and grasped the opportunity to exploit whatever technologies are available to us and have become available over the last 20 years or so, and mastered those technologies. So whilst we are capable of doing a lot, I think we still need a lot more opportunities to do that, to apply it to our local corporate requirements and even the requirements within the industry itself, within the entertainment industry itself.
You're one of those people that can actually speak very broadly, just looking at just the music side of what you've done in your career so far, because of course you've been able to work across what the marketeers call markets or genres. Have you found that sort of creativity and that drive and that ability and that talent really exists across the board?
I definitely think so. Daily I get surprised by what the advertising industry sometimes would call your LSM 60 or 4 to 6, which these aren't people with access to great funding and banks that extend credit, whatever, but with very little resources, young producers out there are able to skill themselves with sometimes some really nifty little gadgets, nifty little plugins, and really squeezing the maximum potential out of that piece of software, and coming up with some astounding pieces. And I think what excites me individually most is that I notice a definite sense of identity. There's an Africanism which refines itself into a South Africanism in a lot of the creative young people that I deal with every day. And for me, that is greater hope than anyone who tries to be a fake copy of some American rapper, or be a fake copy of some American movie producer, or try and copy them. Rather just try and get to the same standard of their skill, but still exploit and explore our own culture. And I think that for me is perhaps where I get a real kick every day when I see young people doing that, and I really get irritated on the other side, where I'm quite ashamed when I speak about this, but there's a real cluster of young people coming through that spend from the morning to night just to be as American as possible. Speak like Americans, dress like Americans, behave like Americans, and really pretend that they're living in America, where we don't. We live here. We live with this South African reality. We live on this continent, and we live in this part of the continent. And we have a story to tell in that what we create. So I get irritated by those who try to be fake copies, and I get so inspired by those who are at work 24/7 to give us our own creative identity.
And at the bottom of this podcast, I'm going to be listing, for the benefit of some listeners, some of the great work you've done through the years and some of the achievements. But I do want to ask you, is there something that you still want to do, that you still want to achieve? The great project that's going to come out of something that Gabriel is involved in. Is there still something that you're aiming for?
I have started on it already. It's a project called Octopus, and it really is an attempt at creating a network countrywide with people who are passionate about music, people who are passionate about particularly South African music. Definitely not any other music. We're well stocked with that, and in a sense, getting the creative material directly to people in the communities, particularly communities that lie outside of the big cities and the big suburbs, people who are in the peri-urban areas, in townships, for instance, and also in the rural areas, in the smaller towns right across South Africa, by using particularly mobile because probably about 80% of our population still do not have access to computers and computer-based internet. Whatever connection there is mostly via mobile.
Right.
And my mission is to use that as an opportunity to create a network where, with the punch of a few texts or a few letters or a small sentence, you're reaching many thousands of people who are receptive and who are passionate about our own creative material. The project is called Octopus. I've got colleagues in all the provinces, and these range from security guards to people who teach IT, different levels of education, different levels of perhaps intellectual capacity, but people who are passionate and people who are street smart. And that's what I look forward to engaging with, not the sophisticated upper crust.
That sounds absolutely fascinating. And if, with your permission, when you're ready to talk about it, I'd like to do another cast specifically dedicated to that, if that's all right with you.
That'll be fantastic. I would really appreciate it as well, because I think that your listeners and your followers deserve to hear more about this.
Fantastic. Okay, now finally, it's something I like to ask people whom we would consider achievers, more or less about their state of mind and about what their personal approach is to to what they've done that is successful. In your case, do you have a sort of set physical or mental routine or approach to the work that you do that is consistent? Are you the type of creative that is exactly that, very creative, kind of goes with the flow as it goes? What would you say is the approach for the advice that you would give to someone who would be asking you, okay, so how do I get to do what you do with as much success as you do it?
Well, we could be here all day, but if I could narrow it down to a few bullet points, I
Yeah.
would say the first thing is for creatives, and I'm speaking purely from personal experience. The scars that I carry today, to some extent, for me, if you make mistakes, if you don't learn from them, then you really wasted the mistakes that you made. If you're going to make mistakes, make them count for you and learn from them. So if you have scars, make sure that you have a story to tell. That you can apply that to future. So what I've derived from all the mistakes and all the successes that I've had in the past are basically the following. You've got to really work at it every single day, from morning to night. Creative is not whilst it's not a tap that you can open and close, you still have to work at it. The whole thing of of writer's block and all of that, it's a reality. But after some time, you can skill yourself and you can equip yourself to create even in the times where you're not feeling particularly creative. So that's the one thing. And then in terms of a routine, Anton, personally, I take public transport. I don't waste my time sitting in traffic. It's an absolute waste of time. I love to use public transport because I interact with people at various levels every day. I chat to as many people as I can, and I get inspired sometimes from the strangest quarters. So I get to studio in the morning, latest 7:30, and I leave no earlier than 6 in the afternoon, in the evening. But when I do leave, I take time out and I spend it at home with my family. And weekends, I try and disengage. So I try to not create 24/7 right throughout the year. I take leave when I can once a year. So I make time for my creatives so that my mind and my emotions are trained to know that this is the time that you can just let go and be creative. So yes, routine is good. And then lastly, I got terribly involved in drugs and substance abuse, and I've been clean for 20 years. And since I got clean, it's just remarkable how my career has flourished. So look, man, if you think you're cool by taking something and getting high, it's fine. Be cool all you like, but then you're going to stay in the underground. You're not going to be very successful in your career. Sooner or later, you'll bum out, So that's just another little observation.
Well,
I can carry on all day, but I think that's probably about enough for now.
There you go. Advice from the people who have done it. Gabby LaRue, icon, composer, producer, hit maker is the word that we often use for you. Thank you so much for your time today. I want to talk to you very, very soon again about Octopus. It sounds like an amazing project, and we'd certainly like to hear more about it. But as for today, Gabby, thanks so much for your time today. We know you're very busy.
Anton, thanks so much for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you and everyone who's following the Oracle. All the success for you as well. Great work. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gabby. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to the Oracle podcast, brought to you by Ori Consulting, www.oriconsulting.co.za.